This is the January 19th, 2012 Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting. I'm now at this time calling the meeting to order and welcome everyone for being here today. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the January 5th, 2012 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please note aye.
Aye.
Turn your button on the side. Flip this switch.
There you go.
There we go. If you can't tell, this is the first time I've ever done this. Our chair is gone today, so we'll get through this the best we can. Kathy, are there any continuances, requests for withdrawals, anything of that nature?
We have one item today, item number 12, case number 13244 is asking for a continuance to February 2nd.
Okay. And we'll address that in the order of the agenda, item number 12 at that time? Okay.
Move a continuance of item number 12.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye. Motion's approved. I see no items on the consent docket. I'll turn over the meeting to our first case, case number 13501, please.
Item number 1, case number 13501, request for use variance of Charter Oak Production, LLC for permit to drill an oil gas well located at 13135 Southwest 104th Street.
Would you please state your name for the record and your address and what you're here to speak on behalf of?
Okay. I am Wayne Smith, 7011 North Robinson, here on behalf of Charter Oak Production. This is a normal oil and gas request to drill a new well. It is located on an 80-acre tract in far southwest Oklahoma City. Be happy to answer any questions you might have about the operation.
Are there any protests in the audience today? Are there any questions from any of the board members?
Mr. Smith, are you aware of any concerns or complaints by?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, in that case, I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye. Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Item number 2, case number 13502, request of use variance of Stevens & Johnson Operating Company for permit to drill an oil gas well and a variance to the required site-proof fencing around the well site and landscaping located at 8007 South Bryant Avenue.
Good afternoon.
I'm Russ Walker, ladies and gentlemen. I represent Stevens & Johnson Operating Company, which is an active oil and gas operator in portions of South Oklahoma City. This well is proposed in an area that's not surrounded by any kind of buildings or other construction items. It's on land owned by the state of Oklahoma and would be drilled pursuant to a lease granted by the state of Oklahoma. Again, if there's anything you'd like to know about it, I'd be very happy to.
If you could speak to the variance from the aspect of the site-proof fencing and the landscaping, please.
As you may be aware, there's a big demand for copper these days. And copper is stolen rather frequently from well sites, has been stolen rather frequently from well sites of Stevens & Johnson, both in Oklahoma County and in other parts of the state. There will be site-proof screening around the well and the well facilities, but the trees permit people to hide and do crazy things, and this is really in an area where they probably would not be needed, and that's the real reason for the request. And what in the next matter that's before you, we'll also be talking about trees. But what we would like to do, if we could have this be part of the order, we would like to have it be up to the judgment of the city's oil and gas department and the oil and gas inspector as to what trees would be necessary at this location.
And that would be made a part of the variance.
Yes, sir.
Well, it still will be fenced, though, for safety
Oh,
purposes.
yes, sir, it'll be
Chain link
fenced with-
fence.
Chain link fence, high chain link fence with site-proof screening on the fence itself.
And how high do you anticipate it would be? I'm just curious.
The typical fence is 6 feet high, and if the oil and gas inspector in this particular instance wanted one higher, they would do that.
That thing's kind of setting up on a hill, too, isn't it? I mean, it'd be kind of hard to screen it anyway, wouldn't it? It was,
They said that's correct.
In that case, I move to approve.
And with the added language that the inspector will make the determination for proper vegetation and landscaping.
Yes.
yes. Second.
All those in favor, please vote aye. Motion is approved. Thank you.
Item number 3, case number 13503, request for use variance of Stevens and Johnson Operating Company for permit to drill an oil gas well and a variance to the required site-proof fencing around the well site and landscaping located at 1925 South High Avenue.
Again, I'm Russ Walker for Stevens and Johnson. This is a slightly unusual request because of all the requests that are made in the application. There's only one that we're really interested in. The other stuff sort of came as a matter of course. This is a well which has been drilled and producing for a few years. It is on surface owned by Stevens and Johnson. Again, the request is, the original order from this board approving this well asked to have the trees planted around the 200 by 200 foot site. We're asking now to put that to the discretion of the Oil and Gas Department and the Oil and Gas Inspector for the same reason that I described earlier. There's lots of copper thievery occurring, and this is in an area where there is a lot of theft, and so we're just asking to make the requirement for trees up to the discretion of the Oil and Gas Inspector. Again, the land is owned by Stevens and Johnson, and the well itself, the well facility, the pumping unit, and all that is surrounded by a fence with site-proof screening on the fence.
So there was a previous order. There's already a fence that exists today.
Yes.
What hasn't been accomplished is the landscaping.
That's correct.
All right. And what you're asking is a variance that would allow the inspector to make the determination of the necessary landscaping and vegetation.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
There have been a few safety concerns that have been addressed. How do you respond to those?
Are you speaking of the photographs that the board received?
Well, I think I reviewed an email of protest of sorts that inquired or that raised concerns about the fence where kids play and that it hasn't been fixed or addressed, and just curious as to...
Well, all I can say about that is this. I was there yesterday to inspect the property myself, and my client was not with me, and I could not get onto any of the land on which this operation, and there's another very old well on the south end of that. See the little rectangle down at the south end of the thing? That's another well site down there. And it's all fenced with chain link fences, with the barbed wire stuff on the top, and all the gates are locked. And I went out there to look at the facility myself, drove all around it, could not get in it myself, and just had to make I had been there before, so I knew basically what it was, but I could not get into it myself. So any allegation that some child could get in there and play in this facility is completely wrong. Again, this particular well and the one to the south are also surrounded by fences inside the exterior fence.
We've had a request to be heard by Mr. Eddie Williams. Have you spoken with Mr. Williams about his concerns?
Well, I have not. My client is familiar with him, and let's just say that it's our understanding that Mr. Williams seems to have a number of concerns about virtually every well that's in this part of town. We understand that he sent approximately 115 photos to the board or its staff in protesting this matter. 3 of those photos happen to be of this particular site here. The rest of them don't have anything to even do with this site.
Well, let's do this. Why don't we have Mr. Williams come up and speak on the matter, and then you may have an opportunity to respond. Mr. Walker.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Eddie Williams. I live at 824 Southeast 19th, and I'm very nervous about this. I've never done this before.
I'm very nervous, too. I've never done this before, so we'll be fine. We'll get through it.
I live 340 feet from the well, and it is loud. It is on the on the east corner there. He said the whole fence is fenced. It's not. What you see up there on top, the house that's up on top, there is no fence around there. It's wide open. I live right across from it on the corner of Southeast 19th and Laird there. In the southwest corner, inside the fence where the well is at, there's a machine. I believe it's called a compressor. This thing screams 24 hours a day. For 2 years, I've been asking him to put it in a shed, a small shed, 4 by 4 by maybe 7 feet high, insulated shed. That will stop all of that noise. The fellow that lives, Chris, he lives up on the house right next to it. He lives about 50 feet from this well. He has called he's called Oklahoma City, who has contacted the contractor, the service company that handles that well, to get the well shut down on numerous occasions because of the noise that it makes. I went around to all the neighbors. When I bought the place in 1998. Never had a problem. It was a great place. There was rabbits. We used to see rabbits, a family of foxes out there running around, trees, everything was nice. Without warning, without any notice, a well drilling rig comes in, starts drilling a well. The guy was pretty nice about everything. He came by and talked to us and said, look, it's going to be noisy, but we'll get through this. He was there for several weeks. And then I guess he got fired because he wasn't drilling the well fast enough. So another rig came in. That was the noisiest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it was week after week after week after week. Channel 4 came out one time and did a news story on it because it was so loud. 24 hours a day. The guys that worked, they were drilling the rig, the water hydrant was right in front of my house. So at night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, they're running over, they're spinning their tires, going up and down, back and forth to that hydraulic, the fire hydrant to get the water from. That was in, I think, in 2007, 2008. So I started asking, look, can you guys get after it was all completed, that one machine, made lots of request after request, can you guys put this in a building so it'll be quieter? No. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. So that kind of ticked me off a little bit, and I started looking at other wells in the neighborhood. And when I started looking at the wells in the neighborhood, that's the ones you have pictures of. When he said that I did look at other wells, I did. But it was to prove what the wells look like in my neighborhood. And if you look at those pictures, you will see the condition of all the wells in my neighborhood, and they are terrible. One thing I did notice on the reports that you guys had, I don't know if they highlighted, when I highlighted the places, I don't know if they came out in your pictures, because when I tried to do it, they didn't turn out on my copy machine. So I didn't get the highlights. But if you see, okay, let's get right to the Stevens and Johnson one.
Yeah, I'd like to stay focused on that well in particular. number one. And number two, I'd like to stay focused on the fact that this is a variance where we're looking at fencing issues and landscaping issues. And I hear your concerns, and we want to be helpful and we want to be respectful, but we need to stay focused on the landscaping and the fencing issues that are present here today, sir.
Okay. This is the emails that I got from Paul Bronson about this well. When I was concerned about it, they came in one time and they planted trees. And you know, I thought everything was fine. Well, no one ever took care of the trees. They died within a couple of weeks. They were dead. So it was after a while, I contacted Mr. Bronson again, let him know that the trees that they planted were dead. So he said, okay, well, we'll come out and have them plant some more trees. Well, then several weeks later, they showed up with some trees about this big. And the code says that the trees should be 6 feet high. So that wasn't done. He said that there's also an email that says that the work would be done within 2 weeks, and it wasn't done. It wasn't even addressed until I got the new hearing date here.
So is it fair to say, sir, that your concerns are that there's not adequate landscaping there at this time, and that the fence has an issue? Is that correct?
Yes, I went down through the neighborhood. I was able to get out this past weekend, and I have 100 and something signatures from everyone that lives around that well site about it being noisy and about it being the trees planted. I'm looking for them right now. Stevens and Johnson. Old House.
Each one of the board members, sir, have gone through your materials. They were provided in our agenda. And so I guess the question that I would have is, what in the way of trees that were there at one time that are now gone that you have a concern about? And secondly, what portion of the fence is problematic to you?
Okay, I've got a picture of the thing, and this is what everybody was talking about us having done. You don't have a copy of this, I'm sure. Like I said, this was like trying to print it and it didn't come out right. But the blue portion here, lines around it, has already got trees and everything else. The green is where we want to have the trees planted. Evergreen trees planted right on, just around here. It's only, I think it's 210 feet in front of my house. There are no trees. We'd like to have trees planted there, 10-foot centers. And then around Chris, I believe his last name is Clark, around his place, he was concerned about the trees not being planted there, and there is no fence there. So if you're willing to take a look at this.
Could you hand that to Mr. Walker so he could take a look at it with his client?
And the other concern was getting that piece of equipment in that corner in that insulated shed so it doesn't make all this noise, because it screams 24 hours a day. My bedroom's in the back of my house, and I can hear that from my back bedroom at night. It is screaming. And that's mainly our concern, is that getting this thing put into a shed and planting the trees along and fixing the fence in the areas where there is no trees.
Okay.
Sir, I've got a couple of questions. How long have you lived there?
Since 1998.
Was that well there when you moved?
No.
Okay. So that's a new well since 1998.
Yeah, the reason we got the house was because it was kind of like being in the country in the middle of Oklahoma City.
Okay.
There was rabbits, it was a nice, had trees and all of it. They came in and just knocked everything down and drilled the well.
Okay. Lance, do you have the photos on so we can put them up on the screen? I'd like to know which one of these photos actually are photos of that well site.
Okay.
Can you clarify that?
Sure. Skills.
He has recourse with regards to noise factor, doesn't he? In terms of filing a complaint on that.
I filed complaints. Oklahoma City, and Gas and I do not get along.
Yeah.
I've submitted evidence that you can show that they've been lying on inspection reports for years. If you look at those other well sites, you can look, and I went back 5 years, and if you look at the pictures, some of those pictures were taken on the very day that the well inspection was. And those pictures clearly show you that the fences are torn up. There's holes in the fences. They're rusted. They're not down. The equipment's not painted. For years they've been doing it. So oil and gas, Oklahoma City Oil and Gas, is not going to give me anything. They're not doing anything about it. And you can, Councilman Kelly knows, Paul Bronson, the assistant director, knows, the new public works director knows, Councilman Kelly knows, the new Eric Winger, I believe, he now knows about the falsifying of all these records.
Point out to us which one of these photos are that well.
That's not the well. I believe that's Bolting House. Those are the pictures that I brought to show you that.
We're concerned with this well site, and that's all I want.
Right.
Okay.
These are the pictures of Stevens and Johnson right here. In fact, there's a violation right here in my first picture that I have for diking. There's supposed to be a diking around here in case some of these oil spills. Just diking around there is supposed to catch it. If you look, there's only a few inches. They filled the diking in, put gravel in it. There's only a few inches between the gravel and the top there. If these tanks spill, they still go on the ground. And there's a creek right next to it.
I don't think we need to stick with what we're supposed to hear today, though.
Exactly. And Mr. Williams, I understand your 3 points, and I understand that you're concerned about landscaping. I understand that you're concerned about the fence, and I understand that you're concerned about noise. But let's stick right now with the landscaping and the fence, and is there an oil and gas inspector here from the city that could give us a little rundown and help Jim out on what it looks like out there?
Tommy Adams is here, oil and gas inspector.
Tommy, could you answer Jim's questions about appearance and what it looks like out there? Please. Yeah, come on up.
Give us a rundown of what that well site looks like right now.
Well, I haven't personally been on that well site in the last at least 30 days.
Okay.
We have 2 inspectors. We divide the areas up with May Avenue. I have everything in the city limits west of May Avenue. James Nolan has everything to the east of May Avenue. Okay? Therefore, to give you, if you're asking me what that location looked like right now, I can't give you an honest assessment.
What did it look like 30 days ago when you were there?
To me, it looked like a typical oil field operation there. I'm not real sure about what Mr. Williams' concerns is about the dikes on it. I didn't see that picture exactly if he's talking about the dikes around the tank battery, if he's talking about the dikes around the pumping unit.
Yep.
I will say this, whenever I was there, that, like I said, it was, there's different opinions. People have different opinions. What might look good to me may not look good to Mr. Williams. Okay? Right. I'm granting that. He has a different opinion than I. All right? That doesn't mean people are lying. That means that was their opinion of that day they were there.
Great.
Okay? And the implication that lies are being told deliberately is frankly insulting, but, that comes with territory. The remarks about the quality of work, how I do my job, I take those, that comes with the territory. What I find particularly distressing is personal assaults, and of course we're getting off the beaten path here on this location.
Okay.
But, things of that nature. In my opinion, this is my opinion, okay, the last time that I looked at this location, it was in good shape. I will say on 2 separate occasions we've had people from Public Works Department go out and take decibel readings. Both times it was my understanding, this is in the compressor that Mr. Williams is talking about, It is my understanding that at both times, whenever those decibel readings were taken, they were within acceptable limits.
Does that answer your question?
We do not in our department have...
So your responsibility is to go out there and look at the safety and noise, things like that. So in your opinion, that's a safe well site, and it's not excessive noise or anything that would make you do anything to that well site that's not there now?
That is correct.
Okay.
If you'd like to see the pictures, I just had access to the pictures when I was about collecting signatures. The guy let me in his backyard so that I could take pictures of these tanks, and you can look and see it's all filled in with gravel. And the noise reports that you're talking about, when they turned them in to Mr. Williams, they were not...
Williams, could you address the board, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. When they turned them in, Mr. Smith took the noise reports, and he didn't submit the noise reports that he took from inside my gate. I talked to Mr. Bronson about it, and he couldn't figure it out either. So the noise reports that were taken inside my yard were not turned in.
Well, let's do this. We understand the 3 points that you've raised. Let's give Mr. Walker and his client an opportunity to respond to that, if that's okay.
So let me just say
if you want to pass those pictures around to the board, you can walk up and give them to Kathy, and we will take a look at them, sir.
May I say one thing? If Mr. Mr. Williams, if he wants to submit concrete evidence that that compressor is exceeding the acceptable limits, we will respond. We will ask that something be done. But like I said, personnel from the Public Works Department has went out twice. And
just one second. We appreciate your comments and assistance. Thank you. Mr. Williams, if we can let Mr. Walker respond. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, can I say just one more thing? If they would stop the noise and plant the trees like that, they would never hear another peep or the other guys that live, the other people that live around that neighborhood. That was the complaint. If they would just do those things, they would probably never hear. I mean, it's too late to do anything about the well. But if they plant the trees, put that equipment in the shed, they will never hear another peep out of me or the other neighbors. Everybody said if they do that, it's fine.
We get the point. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you
for your time.
I mean, I'm glad this is over. Oh, this is another picture here.
I'm not sure what it is that's condemning about those pictures. A couple of them are photographs of a work crew working at the well itself. The fence that surrounds the well inside the exterior fence has been taken down so you can see the well a little bit. I don't know what about those are particularly condemning. There are a couple of pictures of the tank battery, which is at the south end of the facility. In compliance with federal and state law, it has a concrete berm around it, so that if there happened to be a spill, the berm would contain the contents of the spill. You know, there's a calculation of the volume of the area that could be filled up inside the berm versus what could leak out from the tanks that are inside the berm. You'll also note that inside the berm, you don't see one trace of anything except greenery growing. It's immaculate inside that berm. Again, there were a number of issues that he addressed that, as you all said, were not particularly what we're addressing today. I do have answers for all of those, including our understanding that the decibel level, it's an electric compressor. So it's a very, very quiet compressor, and those decibel levels have been inspected by the City of Oklahoma City and have been found to be in compliance with all noise rules.
I think the main issues we want to address would be the fencing issue, if there's some fencing down, and also landscaping if there's trees that have died that have not been replanted. Would that be correct?
I am told that, you see, look at the very, you all probably can't see it, I guess, or you maybe have it in front of you, the very northeast corner of the facility. There's a little sort of a rectangle with a line through it. Chris actually lives there, and the Stevens and Johnson property line sort of runs on the west and south sides of that house. And I'm informed that that fence is down because Chris has been moving some dirt, and that whoever Chris is, they talk with him all the time, and he's not displeased about anything, according to my client. So, but that's where there is a fence down there.
Well, and that's somewhat hearsay, but I guess the point is, if the fence is down, is it going to be put back up at some point in time?
Yes, sir. It was just to accommodate his moving some dirt.
And if there are trees that have died, are those going to be replaced?
Well, those are the ones that we're really asking not to replace. So, according to the original order, that the planting of those trees was required, and it was very difficult to keep them alive here. And so what we're asking for now is, again, not to have to plant the trees for the reasons I've mentioned. People can hide in them.
But you're willing to submit to the jurisdiction of the inspector to determine what trees should be installed to make it a more friendly environment for the neighbors?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Are there any questions from any of the board members?
Did you look at that drawing that he gave you and your clients?
Pardon me?
Can you respond to that little drawing that he gave you, his request?
This is what we're asking for here. The trees to be planted here by Chris's house, in front of my house, and then the shed.
Sir, I just want his response, please.
Again, he was kind enough to show it to me. That's when I really asked my client about Chris. Apparently, as far as we know, we have no problems with Chris whatsoever, and as far as we know, he's never asked for any trees. But again, we would put it to the judgment of the oil and gas inspector and the oil and gas department as to what trees are necessary and appropriate to make the area more appealing to the neighborhood and to try to avoid the problems which we
that would satisfy
see with
me.
trees.
So.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion from the board at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve and leave it up to the discretion of our inspector to determine what needs to be done at that particular site.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please vote aye. The motion passes.
Item number 4, case number 13504, request for use variance of Stevens and Johnson Operating Company for permit to drill an oil gas well and a variance to the required site-proof fencing around the well site and landscaping located at 8523 South Sunny Lane Road.
And my name is Russ Walker. I represent the applicant. I think the first thing I might mention is that I believe the city has received 4 letters of protest with respect to this particular matter. Mr. Jones had asked earlier in the first hearing whether council or whether Mr. Smith had been aware of any protests, and he was not aware of any. We are aware of 4 protests in this matter. I think that we can adequately explain everything that's going on. I happen to bring with me some color aerial photographs. If anybody would like me to pass those around, I have enough for every member of the board. And if there is anyone here protesting, we're not acquainted with the protestants, so I wouldn't be able to recognize them, but I'd be happy to give the protestant one of the photographs as well. And then and then we can talk about
Just for your
what's
benefit,
going on
Mr.
here.
Walker, it's my understanding that there has been a request to be heard to agenda item number 4 today.
If I knew who that was, I could...
There's been some notice concerns raised, some of the protest concerns about being notified.
Have you met with any of the people that are objecting to this building at all? You have not?
Would you like us to go do that and then come back into the room?
Well, that'd be something I would suggest.
Okay. We can table it till the end of the docket. Is that fine?
Is that all right?
A motion to table.
Move the table to the end of the docket.
Your motion?
Second. All those in favor, please vote aye. The motion has been tabled. I think we're now ready for agenda item number 5.
Item number 5, case number 13495, request of W.H. Brahms for a variance to the maximum sign height, landscaping requirement of the sign regulations, and to allow a sign located within the street right-of-way located at 3004 Northeast 63rd Street.
Would you please state your name for the record and your address?
Yes, I'm David Cheek, 6301 Waterford Boulevard. I represent W.H. Brahm. Mr. Stonesiver, you weren't here the last time we were here, so I'll just briefly go through the application. This is the corporate headquarters for Brahms at 63rd and Bryant. There are really 3 variances we're requesting. On the location marked sign number 2, which is right there on the very north edge of the property in front of the building, there is an existing sign that has been there for a number of years. When it was originally built, it was in full compliance with the requirements of the city at the time, and the parking lot was formulated around it. Since that time, 63rd Street has been widened. The current location of the sign is in the right-of-way. We want to replace that sign, the existing sign, with a new sign in the same location. So that's variance 1. We understand we'll have to get a revocable permit. We've made that application. It's been approved subject to this hearing today on the location in the right-of-way. The second issue with that site is that the landscaping requirements, because of the way the current parking lot is built and where it's located, and I have a detailed drawing of that, if we could, I understand I can get that up upon request, showing where the sidewalks are, where the exact, that's the next one, can you scroll down? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Whoa. Okay, well, we'll look at this one first. This shows where the new sign will be. There are sidewalks that run on the island there. This circle is a 10-foot radius around the outside edge of the sign. If that's what your ordinance says and the requirements, then there is probably enough room to get enough landscaping within that circle. If you could scroll back up to the other one, if it's 10 foot within around the pole, which is what we understood when we filed this application, we cannot get enough landscaping without tearing up sidewalks and parking lots to meet the to meet the landscaping requirements. We're willing to put in landscaping, but it's going to be outside that 10-foot radius just because of the existing location. So the landscaping issue needs to be, we need to be told what we need to do as far as landscaping on the sign if approved, and if it's less than required or outside the 10-foot radius, depending on how you interpret the ordinance, we need a variance on that.
JJ, can you give us some clarification on that?
It seemed to make more sense to go by the outside perimeter of the sign, but I haven't had a chance to talk with plan review. But I would think he could meet it, meet the landscaping requirement on that 10-foot radius from the perimeter of the sign itself.
I believe we can meet it if it's the 10-foot of the sign itself.
And just for purpose of the record, you're willing to do that?
Yes, right? Yes, we are.
What's the implication of doing? Is it doing the
Can we go to the other drawing? You've got to get all your landscaping within that circle. So you've still got, you should.
made the points.
Right. Yeah, we can do that.
What I would do in that case, Dan, is approve the variance and subject to the landscaping being within 10 feet of the perimeter of the sign structure itself.
Okay, those are the two issues on that sign. Now, there's a third issue that, and if you'll go back up to the top of those pictures that we were first looking at, on the northwest corner of this property, there is an existing 50-foot sign, and if you can rotate that one, what we want to do is replace that with a 70-foot sign. We recognize that the ordinance says 50 feet. This highway, I-35 at this location, is very elevated. We are putting in a brand new retail. We're upgrading the current retail. There's existing retail at the facility, but we're bringing it up to Brahms' current standards. And frankly, we're trying to get our marketing as best we can. This is a depiction at the exit, just as you get off of 63rd Street, with the existing sign, which is right below, and then the proposed 70-foot sign and how it applies to the other signs in the area taken from ground level looking out. So it will not appear to be higher than any of the surrounding signs. If you go out and survey it, and I think I put a map in the actual application, it is within 5 feet. It'll be slightly higher, but the elevation is such we're way down low and the other signs are way up high. There is another picture of this further back as you're approaching this exit. Okay, this is as you're approaching the exit, going south. No, you're going north, getting ready to get off at 63rd Street. Again, you can see the existing sign, the proposed height of the new sign, and the other signs around. I think there's a third picture. Can we scroll down? And rotate. Yeah. This shows the existing condition from that same location. And you can see how much lower this property is. There was some discussion last time that this was a neighborhood store and really was not designed to attract attention. This is Harris Wilson. He's the project manager for Brahms on this. I'd like him to talk to you a little bit about the marketing efforts.
But just for purpose of the record, so I'm clear, this is the corporate office.
Yes, sir.
Also a retail location that previously has been there and is being remodeled?
Yes.
Okay.
There's been a retail location there for a long time.
I understand.
It's a good one to go to. Mr. Brahm eats there all the time.
My name's Harris Wilson. I'm the staff engineer for Brahms. And we took a look at the demographics for this store within a 1-mile radius, and then we took 3 other stores in the Oklahoma City area, one up in Edmond and 2 in Oklahoma City, 1 on 23rd Street and the other on Pennsylvania. The demographics for this store had somewhere around 800 people in the 1 mile limit, which was telling us, just looking at a map, it looks as if it's the density isn't so, not a lot of density here with population. At the other stores, the population density is well over 10,000 within that 1 mile radius. And what that implies to us, or what that tells us, is we are getting a significant amount of business off of the highway for that store to be a viable store, profitable store. So.
And that's the reason for the request for that variance.
I'm going to ask the same questions I did last time. How long has that store been there?
Roughly 30 years.
30 years. And the sign that you've got there has been sufficient for 30 years. And like I said at the prior meeting, I don't have to see a Brahms sign. I can taste it within at least a half a mile or more. And I do have a problem with the 70-foot sign. I can't see where that is necessary. I can't see that, you've only got people off the interstate in one direction. That's the northbound direction. They can get there, but they have to go around and get off on Martin Luther King and come back. Okay? And it's very difficult, would be very difficult to see that 70-foot sign, even at that, from the southbound traffic. And I don't have any problems with the landscaping, but I do have a problem with the 70-foot sign. And, that was my sentiments last time, and I still feel that way.
But I think your contention today is that the sign is insufficient given the changing demographic and what you're trying to accomplish with the store. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And so, I was going to say, and given the fact that I know you raised the concerns about the exit and only being able to exit from, going northbound on that 63rd, I think that would be a stronger argument in support of why you may want to grant this variance for the height of the sign so that it could attract other traffic coming the other way, which could get there somehow.
Every possibility we have is needed at that location. We can't change the elevation of the location. We can change the visibility of the store, and that's what we're trying to do. In relative position to the rest of the signs around there, it's not going to stand out.
Go ahead. No, I think that's my point. I was in favor of what you were talking about the last time, not because I think it's a great retail location, because I don't think it's a great retail location, just because of access. If you had exits at every corner, that'd be great, but you don't have that, so the access is not great. But the fact of the matter is you're trying to promote the brand and the store as well as possible. And I haven't seen the topography of the area. I know the topography pretty well, and I know the way the water flows there, and you're at one of the lowest points in that area. It's true. At that. And so I think, I feel like the item number B under statutory requirements is met. This is a peculiar site where the highway is in the area that you're at there. It appears from the pictures that this is probably within a few feet of being minimum necessary to take care of that. And I don't see any, looking at the elevation of the other signs in the area and where this one sits, I don't see any detriment to the public good here, so I would move approval of the application.
Second.
And if you can meet that landscape requirement there, and not because we talked about increasing it on the corner over there, but either one's fine. So,
Mr. Baker, is your motion to all three items?
All three.
Again, renew my second.
So all three. Okay.
Any further discussion or questions from the board? All those in favor, please vote aye. The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6, case number 13499, request of Phil Jackson for a variance to the minimum lot size located at 7513 North Air Depot Boulevard.
Mr. Jackson.
Hi.
Please state your full name for the record and your home address.
Phil Jackson, 7513 North Air Depot Boulevard, in Oklahoma City. Yes, I'm requesting a variance to rebuild my home at this particular location. It was destroyed by the wildfires in August, and I'd like to build my home back in the same place it was before, not knowing that it was on AA, until we try to get a permit and find out that we couldn't get a permit to the location, so that's what I'm requesting.
Any questions from any of the board members?
Move approval.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please vote aye. Your request is approved, sir. Thanks for coming today.
Item number 7, case number 13500, request of RICO for a variance to the maximum size sign located at 1225 North Broadway Avenue.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam Gresham, 400 Northwest 23rd. I'm here to represent Mercedes-Benz in this application. Our request is for a 45 square foot sign. It's about 6 feet high. I didn't notice that our packet contained any illustration of the sign, but it's a smart car sign. It is a required corporate, Mercedes-Benz requires, it owns smart car, and they're required by the federal mandate to have a fuel, their fleet needs to have the fuel efficiency to meet current CAFE standards. So smart car does that for the Mercedes-Benz brand. Smart cars are being marketed now out of the Mercedes-Benz showroom. Bob Howard is the owner of that dealership. He owns the Volvo Jaguar dealership, which is directly south of it. It's the entire city block south of this location. It has 2 monument signs on it now. On the Mercedes-Benz site, which is between 11th and 12th, there is 1 monument sign. That monument sign is 75 feet from the Volvo sign, which is across 11th Street. But on our parcel, we have the monument sign. And then we're proposing 200 feet from that to install a smart car sign. Again, 200 feet from the current monument sign for Mercedes-Benz for the smart car sign.
And the smart car dealership, it's already there? And
it's already there. It's in the building.
Cars today?
Yes.
Any questions from any of the board members?
Did DDC approve that then? Yes. Move approval.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote aye. Your application is approved, sir. Thank you for coming today.
Item number 8, case number 13505, request of Tyler Signs for a variance to the maximum number of signs, the maximum size, and the landscaping requirements located at 9210 Southwestern Avenue.
Hello. My name is Matt Hinkle with Tyler Sign Company, and my home address is 10308 Casa Linda.
Is it Hinkle?
Hinkle. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We're asking for a few variances today. The property in question is 89th and Southwestern, where Hobby Lobby recently departed from. The owner of the property is taking an old empty box and is doing about $2 million worth of improvement to that empty box to attract new tenants down there. Has a lot of space to fill. And part of what we're trying to do is take these old multiple tenant panel signs that have been there for 20 plus years and update them to allow space for the influx of new tenants. As you can tell by the looks of the before and the after, Mr. Preftek spent a whole bunch of money trying to update this center. The first sign in question, the existing pylon there on the left side of that picture, is 400 plus square feet. So basically it's non-conforming legal sign. All we're really trying to do to that is add some pretty leg coverings on the side and an arch top that mimics the arch tops on the center. The faces don't change size. They're the exact same number of faces. We just divide them up a little differently to allow for additional tenants.
And for purpose of the record, you're referring to an exhibit that's probably out of the view of the television, and you have the proposed what it will look like once it's completed, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
This one is also, you can't see the ground of this one, but it's sitting smack dab in the middle of the parking lot. And so with the $300,000+ he's spending on landscaping for the whole project, we feel that landscaping in the parking lot, probably not only would impede traffic, but would be a waste.
And it's my understanding there's 2 signs that you're requesting a variance?
Yes, sir, that is true.
Can we see the other one, please?
You bet. The other sign further south on the location, and if you can, the strip mall, the picture that's up on the screen now, the mall itself is probably 350 feet from Western. And there's a ton of standalone businesses that have their own signs up and down Western. So this one being at the south end of the property already has some tenants that are in the mall on there, and we're just wanting to remove those and make it to where, it has room for more tenants. Not knowing exactly how many spaces that are going to go into this, we can't determine exactly how many spaces tenant panel-wise that the project would need. So we're asking for what we consider to be the number of spaces that we will need in the end.
And for example, the armed forces recruiting would be removed, and placed
Both of those signs, the boomerang and the armed forces recruiting, would be cut off, done away with, and just a multiple tenant panel sign slipped in between the 2 poles. As far as the landscaping on this one goes, it's sitting on a little finger of a parking lot. I mean, there's probably 24 inches of grass there, and getting the plant point total to go in that is not, wouldn't work. The next one, there are some empty poles that are along Western that we're doing away with. One of the concerns was that there were so many signs on Western existing already. We're not adding any new signs. We're adding a small amount of square footage. If you take that one away. We're adding a small amount of square footage. Considering what the armed forces and the boomerang total, we're adding 32 more square feet to put the tenant panel sign in. So it's 32 square feet bigger than what is existing there now. And once again, putting decorative pole covers and a decorative topper on it to dress the area up. Be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Preftate may have something to say too.
You were removing a pole sign that could have a sign on it.
That is correct. It's not in use, and it's just you saw it. It's just an empty frame.
Okay.
And we're taking that out.
I'm Nick Preftakes. I'm the owner of the shopping center, and I live at 837 Northwest 40th Street in Oklahoma City. We're adding 30,000 square feet of landscaping to a shopping center that's been a parking lot for 30 years. And this isn't proposed. If you drive down there, this is happening. So I'm just asking for your help to take a sow's ear and make it into a silk's purse to the extent that it possibly can be. And if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from any of the board members? I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please vote aye. Your application is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming today.
You want these back?
Sure.
Got these back? Looks real nice. Looks real nice.
Thank you guys very much.
You're welcome.
Item number 9, case number 13506, request of Southern Oaks United Pentecostal Church for a variance to permit an accessory sign exceeding the maximum square footage and height requirement located at 6501 South Walker Avenue.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, I'm Mark Parker, live at 6417 South Lee, and I'm the pastor of Southern Oaks United Pentecostal Church and the scapegoat today. We are here because we were seeking to upgrade our sign. It is a little over 12 years of age, and what we're talking about is an existing sign that evidently was not permitted. And we hired a contractor, sign contractor, in 1999 to erect the sign, and in good faith. And it is there, it has been there, and we have not been able to locate a permit. And so today, to refurbish that sign, make improvements on that sign, it is necessary for us to come in here and to seek two variances. One is a height requirement. The existing sign is 20 feet high, and the square footage also is, I believe, 114, which should be 100 under code. And that is our reason for being here today. Like I say, the sign has been in existence for over 12 years. We do try to keep it well, and try to keep our property so that it commends our community, and I think it has been for 12 years.
Are you aware of anybody that's protesting this application?
No, sir.
I've got a question. Are the electronic signs allowed by right in R1?
They are, excuse me, for churches and non-residential uses in residential districts. There's certain requirements they have to meet. They'll have to operate as a level 1, which is basically a static message that changes every 8 seconds. They can't have any animation, scrolling, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I just don't care for electronic signs in residential, but that's just me. But if it's allowed, and it's going to be operated under the ordinance, obviously, that's not an issue then.
That electronic sign is not there now.
What's that?
We have a regular marquee sign.
No, I know. Yeah.
But the proposal, which would be for the permit, was to add that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was just a point of clarification.
Yes.
You are aware that it is within a right-of-way, and that there's a possibility of that sign having to be taken down for repair?
It actually sits back into our parking lot in
is that right?
an area that comes back. I don't know what you call it, an island that comes back into our parking lot.
I think the wastewater did not know that it wasn't in the right-of-way, and I think they just made that statement that if it is in the right-of-way, they'll need a revocable permit.
Okay. It appears to be a drive.
There's a note in our...
2-lane.
Yeah. Yes.
There's just a note in our agenda that says it's in the right-of-way and that it needs to have a irrevocable permit for it. So, but apparently that's not the case.
Thankfully, that's one thing we probably did right.
Yeah.
Do we need a revocable permit or not?
No, I don't. It says, if they were just trying to catch it in case it did.
So we do need one? No, we don't need one. So we can just approve it as is? Okay. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please vote aye. Motion passes. Thank you for coming today.
Item number 10, case number 13507, request of David Ledbetter for a variance to the required number of parking spaces located at 1501 North Broadway Avenue.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dave Ledbetter, 2315A North Hudson. I'm representing both the owner and the developer of the property. Our request is to take the existing approximately 12,000 square foot structure on the property, which is a vacant automotive repair shop, and convert it into a full-service restaurant. The existing space available on the site will give us approximately 50% of our required number of parking spaces. Our proposal is to take a satellite lot directly south of the existing property and add approximately another 79 spaces.
Rod wanted to know what kind of food you're serving.
The intention for lunch is, if you're familiar with the Babes concept out of Dallas, family style, the dinner is going to be more appropriately closer to Saltgrass.
Are there any questions from the board? There being none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval with the provision that be for this use only.
And let me ask.
There's also a note down at the bottom on page, well, I guess it's the last page before the drawing that says available as long as the restaurant is in use, and I assume if that changes, then this parking would also change.
Yeah, it says, for purposes of the record, it says the board's order should certify, or should clearly specify that the off-site parking across the street remain in place and be available as long as the restaurant is in operation.
We can accept that.
You will accept that?
That was my motion. Yeah.
All right.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please vote aye. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 11, case number 13508, request of level urban apartments for a variance to the requirement that no sign should be located within the street right-of-way or site triangle and the maximum height located at 123 Northeast 2nd Street.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard McCowan with City Center Development, 4409 Cannon Drive in Norman. We're thrilled to be doing this mixed-use community here in downtown Oklahoma City. It's located at the intersections 2nd and Walnut, stretches for the entire city block up to Oklahoma and 3rd. We've run into some fabulous, interesting challenges developing a mixed-use downtown project like this, including the ones we're here to talk to you about today. We built the building all the way out to the right-of-way, which is exactly what the Downtown Design Review Board asked us to do, to create that urban environment and bring the building edge all the way to the edge of the sidewalk. That's put us in the interesting situation of not having anywhere to put our directional signage that can safely direct our clients that are coming to our grocery store and to our restaurant location to find the parking that's inside the parking garage for free parking for those retail uses. Additionally, these two totem signs, I believe in the second page that I've handed you, you can see these tall totem signs that we're requesting to put in the street right-of-way. One of them located at the corner of Walnut and 2nd is in the sight distance triangle. Our building is in the sight distance triangle on every corner, and this is really the only place we have to put the sign to make it visible or to have it be effective to do what we need it to do. So in addition to these totem signs, we're also requesting that we can put a monument, well, I don't know exactly what to call this. It's the building ID sign. It's the big sign that stands on top of the building. The reason we have this sign being 8 feet tall instead of 6 feet tall is that the building is really tall itself. Again, meeting the requirements of the downtown central business district, there's a minimum height requirement. The massing and proportion of that sign to make it visible both to pedestrians as well as to automotive traffic, it needed to be a couple of feet taller, and so that's our request. Is
Rita, one point, and I just want, for purpose of the record, to be clear on this. I've known Mr. McCowan in the past, and I've represented one of his businesses, at least one of his businesses. I'm currently not doing any work for him, and I don't know if I should, pursuant to our rules, abstain at that point or whether I can participate.
The question we can ask is whether or not you could objectively review this application before you.
For purpose of the record, I can.
And then the second question would be whether or not there's anyone present today who objects to your continuing to review this application.
Are you aware of any protesters here today who speak in opposition?
No, sir, I'm not.
And the applicant himself has no objection.
Do you have any objection with me participating in this procedure?
I have no objection. Thank you.
If they covered, as far as I know, would be the second request that we've had for a sidewalk sign. The first one was red on Broadway. Do we need to look at maybe an ordinance change along that line? Because I think it's getting pretty prevalent. I know in other cities, monument signs are being put in right-of-ways on sidewalks. So it might be something that we ought to look at with an ordinance change or something maybe.
But at this time, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please vote aye. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, now we'll go back to item number 4, case number 13504.
We met with Mr. Hugus, one of the 4 protestants. I think we had a fruitful discussion, but we didn't come to any ultimate accommodation. So I think we would like to address the board, Stevens and Johnson to request the variance and Mr. Hugus to oppose it. If he went first, it might be easier because then I would know what it is you all might want to know about.
I think that's a good idea, but before we do that, can you explain to us the handout so
yes,
it can be of benefit to us while Mr. Hugus makes his presentation?
Again, I guess you can't see do you all have a copy of the plat that's on the screen?
We do.
Okay, if you see the hashed area at the bottom right with the thing that looks like the street, the cul-de-sac running into it.
Right at 86th Place?
Yes, that's the real estate development called, I think, Bradford Park Estates. And you can see it on the photograph running west from Sunny Lane. The north-south street on the east side of the property is Sunny Lane, and that's the addition that goes in there. North of that is a factory that makes compressor parts. I understand it's not for oil and gas compressors, but things like refrigeration compressors and things like that. South is another little cul-de-sac residential district there. This is Southeast 89th.
Mr. Walker, will you do me a favor? Could you get a little closer to the mic? There's some people having trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
There's another little industrial facility right here, a coatings facility. There's a little factory right here on the southeast corner of 89th and Sunny Lane. I never could figure out what they do. The thing you see to the north is the development of this particular oil field that's being conducted by Stevens and Johnson at the present time. This strip here is a pad that has been built for the drilling of wells. 2 wells have already been drilled on it. There are other wells to the west. The tank battery for all of this property is north off of the photograph, up where my fingers are sort of showing you here, up off the upper left-hand side of the photograph. The proposed well will be, if you can see, you see the pad, the long pad, and then there's a road that runs north and then curves to the west. Right north of that road's a little black dot. The well's going to be just east of that black dot there on this photograph. If you'd like me to describe more about what's going on here, I will. If you'd like to hear from Mr. Hugas first, it might make my job more focused.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Good afternoon, sir. Please state your full name for the record and your home address.
My name is Marshall Hugas, and I live at 4100 Southeast 86th Place. And I'm not the one that's most directly affected by this, but my friend Scott Stevens, that lives in the house closest to the area being developed, he emailed me this, and I was hoping he had emailed it to you, but I don't think he did, because it goes into a little bit more detail with distances and what's there. So I'd like to pass this to you. And to be up front, I already recommended, my homeowners association is having a meeting next Thursday evening that's been on the calendar for quite some time. Since we originally scheduled it, we found out about this effort to get the variance for this site. And I recommended to them that rather than coming back in and trying to reach a decision today, that they actually come out and address the homeowners association at that forum, and then hopefully we could have a more beneficial way forward from there. So I would actually propose that we put this on the table, or table it, whatever you call it, delay a decision on it until they can actually come out and talk to the homeowners association, because they haven't talked to anybody out there up until this point.
Tell me a couple of things. When is the homeowners association meeting?
The homeowners association is, we have 20 lots in that subdivision, and we have a homeowners association because there's bylaws about what can and can't be done in that complex.
When's the meeting?
The meeting is Thursday night, a week from tonight.
And from your perspective, with respect to fencing and landscaping, what is your opposition?
Well, my opposition, first and foremost, is that this is an R1 zoned area, and our opposition from the get-go is that it's an R1 zoned, and they're not supposed to be drilling except in the gas and oil division or in a U7 zone, and this is zoned R1. Okay. So that's first and foremost.
That's number one.
Number two, where they've already begun drilling, that you can see on the picture I passed around, they've already begun drilling 2 sites, and they have 4 more, and at no time until the drilling started were we even aware that something was going in there. And if I understand correctly, the city statutes require a visual fencing, something that makes it look good to the people outside of it, plain and simple. And that's not there right now at the existing oil sites, and I don't if they're requesting a variance to the other site, then that's one more site that's added to the equation where there is no barrier. And before they moved into this area, that was a green belt. The green belt that's on the south side of our subdivision used to wind to the south of us, to the west of us, and then up into that area where they've started drilling. And it used to be a green belt that we had talked with the property owner at that business, and he assured us that if we worked with him with trying to retain that type of environment, because he had deer feeders and everything out, and he wanted us to have a visually appeasing fence line and everything for him, that he would maintain that green belt. Only we weren't aware that it was actually owned by an oil company and that there was going to be drilling planned for the R1 zone. So we're opposed to it, not just from the drilling aspect, but because there's no visually appeasing structures there to even make an effort to block the oil derricks that are now decreasing the property values of our subdivision.
And so I understand this fully. The picture that you received from your friend, was it Scott?
Scott Stevens.
Scott Stevens. On that picture, how many existing wells are there?
There are 2 pumping wells, and I don't know if the other 4 to the east of that are actually drilled already or to be drilled, but there's not one of those oil derricks actually pumping on those sites.
Pumping unit.
If we were to table this, if we entertain that. And we allow the homeowners association to actually meet with the company. What specifically do you expect to come of that?
Well, first of all, I accede to him. You know, he without coming right out and saying it, he's made it clear that they can have the area rezoned and drill no matter what. And after seeing the gentleman earlier where he's got somebody, you know, not 100 feet from his house, I don't doubt they're going to drill. But I would sure hope that out of that meeting we could at least come to an agreement that they would fence it, because it is a neighborhood where we have children, and that they would put the landscaping, trees, etc. If you drive to the airport, you see that one complex of oil wells just off of 44, I believe it is, and they have some really nice trees and full, that you can't hardly tell that there's an oil well there unless you knew it was going in before the trees went up. And I don't, if there's an oil company that's making that kind of money, I really don't understand what the extreme hardship is about abiding by those requirements of the city statutes.
Any other
questions? Again, it goes back to it is an R1 zoned area that they're looking at putting another well in.
Is your concern with the wells that are existing or the proposed well that we're concerned with today?
Both.
The proposed well that we're concerned with today is quite a distance from those wells.
It's still within within 1,000 feet from the subdivision, and I realize that's more than the 600 feet, but it's still within an R1 zoned area, which according to the city statutes, no wells are going to be drilled except in a gas and oil area or in a U7 zone. And this is an R1 zone.
And just to be clear, there's no existing fencing or...
No.
Okay.
Anything else at this time?
No, sir.
Would it be okay if I let Mr. Walker respond to your comments at this time?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
First thing I'd like to point out is I'm not entirely sure that it's clear what I said to Mr. Hugus from the way he described it. I explained to him that there is one area inside the city limits of Oklahoma City called the U7 drilling district, where at least in theory drilling is permitted without a zoning variance. However, in practice, drilling even in that area is not permitted without a zoning variance. For example, that last matter we just had up here, the tanner that when we were talking about the exception for the trees with Mr. Williams, who is here talking with you, that happens to be in the U7 drilling district, but also we were still required by the city to get a variance to drill that well. And what I explained to Mr. Hugus is that regardless of the zoning classification inside the city limits of Oklahoma City, even in U7, the city requires you to get a zoning variance. So regardless of whether land happens to be zoned R1 residential or industrial, which is what this land really is, we would still be required to show up and get a variance either way. And I'm not sure I made that entirely clear to him, but that's...
Do you know how far it is from the closest house in that subdivision that he's talking about to the proposed well site?
Yes, so I happen to have a photograph here. The reason I don't have very many copies of this is that for some reason my color copier decided to go up shreds this morning, and so I couldn't make any copies of it, but this will show you in the lower right is the addition. You can recognize it. The spot is where the well is.
Mr. Walker, you've got to be by the mic.
This is an aerial photograph of the area. You can see where the addition is in the lower right of the photograph. The well is spotted. There's a 600-foot radius and a 1,000-foot radius drawn on this particular map here.
Can you expound a little bit more on, I think the previous speaker talked a little bit about the hardship. Can you talk a little bit more about your perceived hardship here?
Well, the hardship to us is this, and I might give a little history if you don't mind. This is part of the Oklahoma City oil field, which, as you know, was discovered in December of 1929 down at Southeast 59th and Bryant, which isn't too far away from where we are here. A number of wells have been drilled all over this area throughout history since that time. In 1955, the Oklahoma Corporation Commission permitted what is called the Oklahoma City South Wilcox Sand Unit, which is a secondary recovery unit that covers lots of land down here. It's basically for pressure maintenance in a formation called the Wilcox. This entire area here, the Bradford Park Estates, the land owned by my client to the north, south, east, west, is all inside that unit area. As a matter of fact, there are 2 old plugged-out wells in the Bradford Park Estates. And with improved technology, our clients have learned how to more carefully to identify which formations might be producing where, and to take advantage of drilling that. The hardship is that if they're not permitted to drill, that essentially represents a condemnation of their rights, which happen to be the dominant estate. As you're probably aware, the rights owned by oil and gas owners are what's called the dominant estate, and they own the right, whether the surface owners unfortunately know it or not, to use so much of the surface as is reasonably necessary to explore for and extract the oil and gas that's under that land. And the hardship would be that the oil and gas which they believe is under this particular, where this particular well will be drilled, would just basically be left behind forever. And, you know, that it generates revenues for royalty owners, many royalty owners. It generates revenues for the state of Oklahoma. I'm informed by Stevens and Johnson that the severance tax they pay to the state just off of this production here is $40,000 a month. So the hardship relates to all of that, but in particular it relates to what would essentially amount to a condemnation if the variance were not permitted. And again, I'd like to say this also. Bradford Park Estates is a nice subdivision. And, you know, I think most of us are probably privileged to live in nice subdivisions. And my clients are privileged to live in nice subdivisions, either in Oklahoma or Texas, where they live. We're not here to ruin that for these people. We're here to accommodate them to the extent that we can and still exercise our own property rights. We've built a berm on the north side of their addition, the south side of that strip that you see there. We've planted trees there. We've watered them throughout the summer to keep them alive, to start creating a sight barrier there. There was a burglary, which is a little misdescribed in the protests by Mr. Hugus and another gentleman, but a burglar a while ago came in from Sunny Lane on a little road. You can sort of see it right, just coming off of Sunny Lane right north of the hashed area there. Came in early in the morning, apparently went through a gate that opens from one of these yards back onto the property. By the way, Stevens and Johnson owns that 40 acres there. They bought it from the Croys, that manufacturing facility, with the stipulation that no residential development would ever occur there. You know, the Croys feel sort of the opposite with the way these residential owners feel. They feel suddenly that their industrial facility is being encroached on by a residential facility. So when Stevens & Johnson bought the property, they have the obligation not to ever permit any residential development on it. But some burglars came in along that road and went into a backyard here and were stealing some things when Stevens & Johnson's pumpers arrived very early in the morning, saw what was going on, chased the guys off. Mr. Gilmore himself personally called the people whom they thought had been robbed and told them about it. And then they built a concrete barrier to prevent anybody from coming in that road and doing that again, all along the east side of their 40 acres. They're trying to do everything they can to accommodate these owners. They recognize that this is a nice development here that the owners are proud of. And they're not here to try to degrade that development in any way. If in any way they'd like to help it, as I said, they've built a berm, they've planted trees. Eventually there will be fencing, and I can answer any question you've got, I think. I hope I can.
Stevens & Johnson, I'm not familiar with them. Are they Oklahoma City-based, Tulsa-based?
No, so they're out of Wichita Falls. They're actually an international petroleum engineering consulting firm called Stevens Engineering, and another division is called Stevens & Johnson Operating Company, and they drill wells in Oklahoma and in Texas. In 1998, they bought Occidental's interest in the Oklahoma City field. You may remember that an outfit called the Indian Territory Illuminating Oil Company discovered the Oklahoma City field. Eventually, it was acquired by City Service, which then was acquired by Occidental, and then in 1998, Stevens & Johnson acquired Occidental's interest in the Oklahoma City field. There's a very unusual thing about Stevens & Johnson. Every other oil company I talk to their landmen or their lawyers or their owners, to deal with them. At Stevens & Johnson, it's run by engineers. I talk to their engineers about how we do all this stuff. So they're very sensitive to how all this stuff comes together. Mr. Gilmore lives in Wichita Falls, but he's up here all the time working in this field to make sure that everything is done completely properly. I mean, you've probably seen the pumping unit in the parking lot of Crossroads Mall. That's one of their wells, and it's all part of this same unit that goes that far west.
With respect to the well, where are you at with the Corporation Commission? Intent to drill has been filed, things
The
of that nature?
intent to drill has been approved. I happen to have a copy of it.
Okay. And you said that the company wants to be accommodating. What is their position on meeting with the Homeowners Association?
No, they said that they will meet with them.
All right. And if the homeowners want a certain style fencing and some landscaping, is that something that they would be receptive towards?
I think they would be receptive to it. Again, on their own volition, they've built a big berm to try to reduce noise and planted a whole bunch, about 20-something trees. As a matter of fact, they brought water to them this summer to make sure they didn't die. They watered them themselves.
Good. Any other questions? Is it the board?
Are we discussing a continuance?
That's what I was going to ask, what the board's prerogative was. Would you like to continue it to our next meetings, or would you like to vote on the motion at this time?
I'm not opposed to continuing it. If there seems to be a willingness to continue the discussion. But that said,
Would that be in the form of a motion?
Sounds like a motion to me. Second.
We have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please vote aye.
And this is a motion to continue to February 2nd.
Continue to the February 2nd meeting, which is on a Tuesday. Is that right? Thursday? Excuse me, Thursday. Sorry.
The homeowners meeting is in a week. Is that right?
It's this Thursday.
Yeah. Good. Okay?
Does that satisfy everyone here?
We'll be pleased to speak with the homeowners.
Thank you for doing that. We appreciate your time. Do we have anything else?
Move to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn. There's a second.
Second.
The only other thing I'd add is I can't wait for Mr. Austin to be back for the next meeting. And all those in favor, please vote aye. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming today.